Hello, and welcome to the Pragmatic Product Chat series, where we tackle the biggest challenges facing today's product management, product marketing, and other market and data-driven professionals with some of the best minds in the industry. I'm Rebecca Kalogeris for Pragmatic Institute, your host for this episode. Today, we have a brand new guest on the show, which I'm very excited about, Dr. Jeff D. Standridge. He helps organizations and their leaders sort of generate results in the areas of innovation, strategy, profit growth, organizational effectiveness, and leadership. So things that we all care about all the time. He was formerly a vice president for Axiom Corporation. He's established and led startups and business units in North and South America, Europe, Asia, Middle East. So very, very global point of view. He is currently the managing director for the Conductor, is the co-founder of Cadron Capital Partners, is managing director for Innovation Junkies, teaches in the College of Business at the University of Central Arkansas, and is a 3-time best-selling author. So really kind of a lazy guy, doesn't do a lot of stuff. No, he's a very busy man. Very excited to have him on here because I think he's got a great perspective that he's going to bring to the show. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here with you and all your listeners.
Excellent. So I always like to start with everybody's origin story, right? Like, how did you get where you are today? And why are you so passionate about this sort of innovation and leadership intersection?
Yeah. So my business partner, when he gets asked his origin story, he says a lot of bourbon and bad habits. And unfortunately, that's not me. Bad habits, maybe. But I actually was formally trained in the medical sciences. So I spent time as a respiratory therapist and a paramedic. Spent about 9 years on the helicopter team as a medical crew member for Arkansas Children's Hospital, and 6 years of which I was a professor at the University of Arkansas for medical sciences. And I was studying the differences between top performers and average performers in healthcare. That was kind of my academic interest. And a data analytics and technology company called Axiom Corporation wanted to replicate that research inside their company for all of their data scientists, DBAs, software developers, and what have you. So I moved over there and spent about 20 years working for them, where I really got introduced to the world of data management, data product management, just the discipline of product management in general, marketing. Axiom is a marketing services company using data and analytics, and got into the mergers and acquisitions world. Started companies in Poland and China for Axiom, and then acquired companies in the other geographies. And then I got into about 2016. I decided that I'm very invested in my local community and the state of Arkansas. So I started looking at how could we drive more startup activity in our own community. We had all the workings of a great entrepreneurial ecosystem, 3 institutions of higher education, 2 very large technology employers, a very educated, young, vibrant workforce. And so that ultimately led to me starting in 2016, the Conductor, which is an entrepreneurial support organization focused on the state of Arkansas, driving innovation and entrepreneurship for the state of Arkansas. And a number of other companies started coming to us over the course of the last few years, both around the world, and mostly outside the state, some inside the state as well, saying we need those same kinds of services, but we're not an entrepreneurial organization. We're a larger organization. Mm-hmm. So how can you help us think like a startup? How can you help us drive innovation? How can you help us create sustained growth? So we created a sister company in 2020 called Innovation Junkie. And I split my time now between doing entrepreneurial innovation support for entrepreneurial companies and innovation culture of excellence and strategic growth consulting for larger companies.
Excellent. I know we're not going to talk about this part of your background on the show very much, but I just want to give a big shout out, respiratory techs, healthcare, helicopters, children's hospital. You've hit a very big personal spot of mine. So, hey. Yes.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a great career. Ironically, now both of I met my wife there as a neonatal nurse.
Oh, nice.
And a flight nurse. And both of our daughters work there now. One is a neonatal nurse practitioner. One is a pediatric oncology nurse. So
nice.
We have a long history with pediatric healthcare.
Yes. Love it. Love it. Okay. But let's talk about innovation. And I love the fact that you work both with startups, you currently actively working both with sort of startups in the entrepreneurial space, but also large organizations, because I think too many of our listeners have felt like the large enterprises are where innovation goes to die, right? Where like the enterprise will say, I want to be innovative, and they talk on the big game, but it's like moving, it's trying to turn a big ship. There's so many processes in place, or there's so much fear of hurting the golden goose, right? The sort of horizon one product that's keeping, that it's a hard cultural fit. So tell me a little bit about both how innovation, like the state of the two and sort of differences, but what they can learn from each other as well.
Sure. Well, if you go to my website, which is jeffstandridge.com, you will see on the banner of that website, it says innovation and leadership are inseparable. And that's a pretty bold statement, but I have found it to be true irrespective of the size of your organization. If you are leading, or you think you're leading, and you're not innovating, you won't be leading for long. Someone will pass you up. Someone will take your place in the market. By the same token, if you're innovating, but you're not leading, you're going to have a hard time influencing the adoption of your innovations. And so I truly believe and observed multiple instances of where innovation and leadership are inseparable. So the first thing that I would say is that in creating kind of the foundation here, that they really are two sides of a single coin. Secondly, I think a lot of people mistake what innovation actually is. I have a definition that I have kind of cobbled together from a variety of sources, and I describe innovation as planned change, normally directed at more effective, more efficient, more pleasant ways of doing things than we're currently doing them or have done them in the past, and or directed at reducing the transaction cost of doing business, right? And so there are some operational terms there that I think are important, and probably the most operational term is planned change. So innovation is a process. It's not something
a lightning strike that you just woke up in the morning.
It's not a lightning strike. No, it's not a lightning strike. Sometimes it's a train wreck, but it's not a lightning strike. It's not something that occurs by accident, and it's not something that just happens. It really involves a process, and it really is a vital business process to organizations that thrive. And what I mean by that, how many times have, and for the product managers and other listeners that are in large enterprises, B2B particular enterprises, has someone come to the table and says, well, what we need to do is ... or blank, or this is what I think, or I have a great idea. They influence 2 or 3 early adopters to adopt that idea. They end up getting the ear of the corporate leadership, and they create a massive initiative to do this thing, whatever this thing is. But no one's ever, and then 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months down the road, after pushing rope uphill for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, after not having any quick wins or really realizing any benefit of what they've done, they end up abandoning the initiative because it just didn't work out. And I see that happen over and over and over. And it really is because no one ever stopped to ask, what's the problem we're trying to solve? How big is the problem we're trying to solve? What will a solution cost or an innovation cost to solve this problem? And is it going to be worth the effort in the long run? And do we have the bandwidth in the short run? Now, that could be a problem or an opportunity, right? A problem being past tense, negative oriented words that that speak of pain, right? That's a problem. Future tense, forward looking words that are positive in nature that speak of gain, right? Opportunity. So it can be either what's the opportunity we're trying to solve, trying to seize, or what's the problem we're trying to solve. And then we take organizations through a very specific process of saying, let's get clear on what the problem statement is. in very objective terms. And oh, by the way, one problem per problem statement. Let's gather some credible facts and statistics to quantify that problem, to assess the magnitude of that problem, to identify the key issues that we see that lead us to believe that it is in fact a problem. Let's step away from all of our biases around how to solve it and just focus on quantifying the problem, the magnitude of the problem. Once we've done that, then let's go and talk to some key stakeholders that experience the problem to the greatest degree, what we call customer discovery. Let's get out of the building and let's go talk to some people that we think experience that problem to the greatest degree. And let's don't ask them, do you experience the problem? Because that's leading the witness, right? Let's craft some well-developed, open-ended discovery questions that don't lead the witness, that guard against confirmation bias. And if in asking those, if in asking those questions, they don't mention the problem that we've identified, maybe there's a mismatch already. So we encourage this process to take place where we're stating the problem, we're gathering credible facts and statistics, we're quantifying the problem, we're qualifying the problem with key stakeholders and customers or what have you. And as we learn information, we're pivoting the problem statement until all of those three line up. This is the problem. The credible facts and statistics match the problem, and the customer and stakeholder feedback also affirm that the problem exists to the degree we've determined it. Then and only then are you really prepared to start creating a solution. And that solution could be a new process if it's an internal problem. It could be a new product if it's a market problem or a customer problem, et cetera.
So I really like that too. And it so parallels what we talk about at Pragmatic, right? With the Pragmatic framework and, market problems and understanding those, and then market segmentation and sizing. And often I think we think about the framework as it's for existing products, right? It's for all of them, but it's very easy to see how it fits with existing products. But I think the important thing is, and also that we echo in our classes, is that it is that same process that gives you innovation, right? That it's not separate process. Right. It's not a separate thing. It is not lightning in a bottle. It is that same, what problem am I solving? How big is it? And then I also love what you talked about, the sort of, what will it cost, the innovation, right? We teach about price all the time. And we always say that, costs don't matter when you price, but it does matter right here in your decisioning process, right? Cost matters to tell whether I should do this, right? And you really need to have a good sense of it, or it's just a bad business decision.
That's right. We use what's called the real win-worth test, the RWW, real win-worth. Is the problem real? Or the opportunity real, meaning quantified and qualified? Can we win by solving it? Will this put us in a unique position by solving the problem, either internal problem or the market problem? And is the solution going to be worth the effort? Right. Or worth the expenditure or worth the cost or what have you? So you've got this Venn diagram of technically feasible. Almost everything's technically feasible now, but that's one element of the Venn diagram. You've got desirability, meaning does it impact enough people? And then you've got business viability. Can we actually make a profit and recover our cost if it's an internal investment or what have you? And when does that cost get recovered?
I also like that in your list, you said, how much does it cost? Is it a long time worth it? But do we have the bandwidth short term?
Yes.
Because I think that's huge, right? I mean, it's a realistic thing this is where also innovation dies, right? We can see it. It's a great problem. We should solve it. But what am I dropping? We're not going to drop anything. Yeah. Well, then we're going to have a problem, right?
Organizations are notorious at adding new initiatives and not sunsetting old ones.
Yeah.
Or adding a new initiatives and expecting people to moonlight their day jobs to get them done. And something's going to suffer when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I think is interesting about your process, not only is it look, there is a process we're going to go through. We can help organizations of all sizes be innovative if they follow this process. But I think one of the reasons particularly in large organizations, innovation is often more of lip service than it is progress, is there is a risk aversion. Now, if I am an entrepreneur in a startup, like I know that my whole business is going to be based on a problem I see to solve, right? And I know I'm taking a risk. When I'm a large organization, something that feels innovative, meaning it is in some way a break from what we do today, really feels risky. And I would imagine that this process, right? This process, just like the framework, really helps minimize the risk and put those checkpoints along the way where you are able to measure and determine whether you want to go forward in several different spots.
For sure. Let's be clear. Innovation within organizations there's also the change element of it. And change is about behavior and habits and emotions and people, right? So if you follow this process, the identification of the problem or opportunity, the quantification of it, and the qualification of it with key stakeholders and customers, then you've kind of covered the gamut here. You've created the logical reason why we need to solve this problem, but you've also addressed the emotional reason why we need to solve this problem, because you've got some key stakeholders that are affirming it, and you've got some early adopters there in the process who have said, yes, this is in fact a problem. And yes, this would in fact change my business, change the market, change how our customers perceive us or what have you.
Yeah. No, and I also like when you talked about your definition of innovation, I'm going to go back for a minute here. Planned change, normally directed around being more effective, efficient, or enjoyable way of doing something, or lowering operating costs. I think often people think innovation and they're like, it's either like incredibly different, effective, or enjoyable, right? They don't necessarily think about efficiency or lowering costs as innovation. There's like a bias that companies have. And sometimes we have ourselves as product people. Does it feel innovative enough, right? It's not sexy. Yeah. I'm not going to be on a big stage in a TED Talk in a brown, black turtleneck telling about this product. So it must not be innovative. And I think that's a mistake because it has us chasing shiny objects versus chasing these ones that can be really impactful.
Yeah. So, we talk about three different types of innovation. There's incremental innovation, right? That's what we see a lot of times in the form of process improvement, but we also know that seemingly small actions consistently applied over time yield massive results. So even incremental innovations can be transformational over a period of time, but in the beginning, they may just seem like a minor tweak to a process. And so there's incremental innovation. Then there's breakthrough innovation, where we take a new product or a new technology and we apply it to an existing business model.
Yep.
So let's take Uber, right? So the business model of taxis and paying for rides has been around for a long time, but Uber put some technology behind it and really broke through and changed the game in that regard. So new technology applied to an existing business model, or a new business model applied to existing technology. So we had cell phones well before 2017 or 2007 rather, but we were able to really apply a new business model with smartphones and even technology as well there. Then you have what I would call disruptive technology, where something gets displaced. Something is so transformational that it displaces something else, like web streaming versus cable TV.
Yep. Or
antenna-based TV, right? All three of those are viable forms of innovation. And we just kind of have to know at the outset, is this going to be a TED Talk innovation, or is this going to be transform our organization quietly type of innovation?
But we need to value
both
them,
are good.
Right? Yeah, we need to value them all. And also, I think setting that definition up where all of the stakeholders agree on it is key, because I've been in the situation where you're like, here's the innovation, and it doesn't sit right with, but like, is that really innovative? And you're like, well, yes, it hits these marks. And I think that instead of like, hey, chasing it, having that definition up front that the whole organization understands is really key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. One of the things that we do, you talk about innovation going to die, that begs the question, okay, what do you do to keep it from dying in large organizations? And we work with a number of organizations where we run innovation sprints on a regular basis. So one is a very large health system, and the CEO takes his directors and managers offsite every quarter for a leadership institute kind of day. I guess 3 times now, 2 or 3 times, we have come in for the day and have run an innovation sprint. We're talking about 80 to 100 leaders offsite at a single time. And so we put them in tables, and sometimes we'll randomly assign them to tables, and sometimes we'll divide them up based upon functions. Okay. It just depends on what we're tackling. And we'll usually ask them, what one problem or opportunity, if you solved it or seized it, would be a complete and total game changer for the organization? And so we end up brainstorming those across the entire population of folks at the day. And then we do some down selection. We down select those to kind of the top 10. Maybe as a group, we might select them down to the top 15, but then have the executive team kind of weigh in and say, based upon our strategy, based upon our bandwidth, based upon everything we're trying, here are the 10 we think that are the real needle movers for us, if you will. And then we create 10 tables of people, and they work on that process. What's the problem we're trying to solve? What's the quantification of it? What's the qualification of it? And then we actually have them go through a design thinking process to actually human-centered design to actually create a very rudimentary solution by the end of the day. At the end of the day, all of those teams pitch. We pick the top 3 finalists. Usually a panel of executives pick the top 3 finalists. And then my team and I coach those 3 teams over the course of the next 60 days, sometimes 90 days. And they then present to the board of directors their problems, their more well-defined solutions, because by now they've had 90 days to really dig into a solution, to do more customer discovery. And the board has usually allocated several $1,000s of implementation money to investment to the top winner. And so we take one of those and we actually implement it in the organization, and we showcase it. And so that's one of the ways that we work with organizations to keep innovation alive versus sending it to a place to die. We start working on building a culture of innovation. Right.
I mean, you've given so many people their visibility into what that looks like. You've had buy-in from the beginning to what are the problems and what does that mean, right? Then you go and kind of hold hands a little bit more with someone, right? You really start to institutionalize it, to your point, at a different level.
Yeah. And then we've done that by department before, where we've done what we call challenge sprints. Going department by department, where we just focus on what are the business challenges that you're having, or the clinical challenges, or the health, whether you're business or healthcare or whatever. And then we'll pull, do that across multiple different functions and departments. And so it's just the problem identification part, not the solution part. And we'll pull those together. We'll do some down selection across the enterprise, and then we'll put cross-functional teams together to solve the top ones that we think will be the biggest needle movers, so to speak. So a variety of ways to keep innovation alive within organizations.
Well, that's interesting to talk about needle movers. I would think establishing what metrics you're going to use to show that it's innovative or show that it's effective would be key. Talk to me a little bit more about the process you guys would go through there, and what kind of metrics you would expect the organizations to look at in this space.
Yeah. So we use the lean canvas. So the lean canvas was created by Ash Maurya in his book, Running Lean. It was a reiteration on the business model canvas that was created by Alexander Osterwalder and improved by Steve Blank. And Ash Maurya's kind of got the 3rd iteration of that. And we think while it's good for startups, it's also good for new products, new services within organizations, new innovations. And so there are 9 boxes on that lean canvas, and 3 of the boxes are what new revenue streams will be created by this. What are the cost structures or cost reductions that'll be created by this? And what are the key metrics that we would measure to ensure the effectiveness of the innovation? And so it's a little different for the innovation, depending on what's the problem we're trying to solve. We may be trying to solve manufacturing cycle time, right? And so in that instance, cycle time could be a key metric and the cost associated with prolongation of cycle times. It could be that we're trying to reduce defects within an organization. If it's a new product, clearly product revenue, product profitability, customer adoption, early adopter adoption, those kinds of things could be metrics. So it really depends, but specific to the problem or the opportunity that we're chasing, we're very pedantic, if you will, about having them identify how are we going to measure that this was a success? What will be the key indicators we will use to do that?
Nice. I like that. The other thing, and you talk a little bit about presentations, I think telling the story of the innovation, if that makes sense, right? Within the organization and wider. In the beginning to bring them along, at the end to show results is probably another place that you spend some time coaching the teams you work with.
Absolutely. So, I tell everyone that regardless of your role in an organization, if you're an innovator, you're going to have some sales skills and some communication skills and some presentation skills because you have to sell people on the adoption of your technology. So we do a lot on helping them prep for their pitch, how to talk about the innovation, how to not necessarily get in the weeds, because many times we're talking with these innovators being engineers, product experts, technologists, et cetera. And so they may not have as much experience in talking, selling the sizzle, not the bacon, so to speak. And so we work with them to do that as well. And it ends up being just a really well-rounding experience for them because they really get an holistic business experience there. Cost structures, revenue structures, unique value propositions, problems, key stakeholders, pitching the solution, all of those things put together. They really get a holistic business experience.
Right. They get a whole view and a process, to your point, that they can follow through. It sounds like often you're brought in by companies who recognize they need to be more innovative or want it to be a bigger process. And that's amazing. And it's great. Sometimes I talk to product managers who are pushing innovation, let's say from the bottom up, right? Advice you would give them.
Mm-hmm. So for those product managers pushing from the bottoms up, right, is you need to have the buy-in of a decision maker who whether that's your direct leader or the executive to whom your direct leader reports. I think having the process and showing them that your innovation, it has a process behind it, and understanding that the job of a true innovator is to kill the potential innovation as quickly as possible by finding out that our initial ideas were wrong or our initial assumptions were wrong. The last thing you want to do is to sell your direct leader or an executive on a new innovation that hasn't been properly tested or properly vetted. That could be a career limiting move. And so as a result of that, why would I ever want to innovate? Because it could hamper my career growth. So adopting a process, I think, is critically important. And with the bias toward being so tough on your proposed innovation that you're willing to kill it versus move it forward at all costs, because that shows real business maturity. I'd say that's probably number one.
Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. And that actually brings me a little bit to startups. We talked a lot about large organizations, and most of the people listening do work at large organizations. I would be curious as to any other advice or specific advice that you give to the entrepreneurs you work with, those who are starting up, about innovation.
Well, the single greatest reason that a new entrepreneur fails is because they create something that no one wants.
Yeah.
And by the way, that actually applies to product managers a lot of times as well, right? Product managers are really entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
But I am a strong advocate on testing our assumptions. About 60% on average of the assumptions we make about starting a new business or inventing a new product, about 60% of those assumptions are accurate in the final analysis. So we have to have unbiased customer stakeholder feedback to help us close the gap on that other 40%, right? That we're just missing the boat on. We either have blind spots or we have blinders on or what have you. And so recognizing that failure to validate your assumptions is a success.
Yes.
If you create a set of your riskiest assumptions about your new startup idea or your new product idea, and you go out and test those assumptions scientifically using the process that we've talked about, and the quantitative validation or the qualitative validation renders some or all of those assumptions as erroneous, you have succeeded in moving your idea further down the path, because now you come back and you pivot your idea based upon those invalidated assumptions, create some new assumptions, test and learn, test and validate, test and invalidate, pivot again. And about your third or fourth iteration through, you actually now have a product or a company or a service or an idea that could potentially withstand the market. What is it they say? That no idea survives the first contact with the customer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and I like the idea that finding out we should say no is a success, right?
It is a success. And, Google X actually, the large Google innovation lab called Google X, they actually reward innovators or product managers in their Google X lab. They reward them for deciding to kill their idea the same way they reward people for deciding to move their idea on through the milestones, because they see both as a success.
I love that. Right. And I think, and I like that they're rewarded. Right. And it's interesting because often when we bring ideas or products or product features to the table and someone shoots them down, it feels like a really bad thing. But I think the more we can think of people asking hard questions, poking at it, bringing opposite evidence, that is exactly what you want, because either you're going to find out you need to stop it, or you're going to make it, you're going to evolve to make it stronger. So I think that's another kind of not only just saying no, but questioning things along the way should be seen as a collaborative positive and not oh man, Jeff's always shooting down my ideas.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of colloquialisms or whatever that I use. One is constructive, sometimes critical feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And number one. And number two, failure's only failure if you quit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just feedback.
Yep.
So if you think about this particular failure, if you view it as a temporary setback from which you gained valuable feedback, and you adapt your style and your direction and your approach a little bit, and you go forward again and you make it a little bit further, and then you fail, and view that as a temporary setback, find out what that temporary setback's telling you, you adapt to your style, your approach, et cetera, then eventually you get there. But failure is only a failure if you throw up your hands after the first approach and say, well, I failed, I'm going to stop. The idea is to fail quickly and fail as inexpensively as possible so that you have the runway to keep going. To many entrepreneurs, what they do is they go all in on the first iteration of their idea without doing any quantitative or qualitative discovery. They go all in, they mortgage their house, so to speak. And when they have that first failure, they don't have the financial bandwidth to keep going.
Yeah. Fail fast, fail inexpensively, and learn from your failure. Then it's not a failure. If you don't learn from it, it is. Right. Yep.
For sure.
Love it. All right, Jeff, we talked about lots of different things today. If you're going to have listeners do two things differently tomorrow based on what we talked about today, what would it be?
Follow a process. Don't go at innovation willy-nilly. Don't just think about innovation as an idea. Think about it as what's the problem we're trying to solve, and can we validate that problem quantitatively and qualitatively? Or what's the opportunity we're trying to solve, and can we validate it quantitatively and qualitatively? So follow a process would be number one. And number two, don't underestimate the necessity of having to sell your idea to decision makers, and understand that you need to develop those skills as well.
Excellent. All right, Jeff, if our listeners wanted to learn more about you and kind of follow along with some of the great resources you have, where should we send them?
3 locations. One could be just jeffstandridge.com. That's my personal website. I'm very active on LinkedIn at Jeff Standridge is my LinkedIn handle as well. So I'm very active there. Or direct email is jeffs@innovationjunkie.com.
Excellent. All right, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate the time today.
You bet, Rebecca. Thank you. And it was a pleasure. And I'd be happy to engage with any of your listeners at any time.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And if you are looking to make innovation a part of your processes internally, then be sure to check out Pragmatic Institute's new on-demand course, Mastering B2B Product Innovation. This is a self-paced online workshop meant to empower B2B product managers and innovators who work in software and IoT solutions. It's going to walk you through the B2B Innovators Map, which is sort of a step-by-step process to building innovation. It's going to help you align teams. It's going to help you pinpoint and address critical market needs, engage early adopters. In fact, it's all about how you go from an idea to your first 10 customers, right? This is about making an innovation come to life within your organization. So if that is something that you are looking to spearhead or something that you are being sort of tasked to do, I encourage you to check out Mastering B2B Product Innovation, pragmaticinstitute.com.